You know, you could always tell when a politician's speechwriter doesn't like her very much, and that was certainly one of those circumstances. Someone said she wrote it herself. That's not very nice. Mr. Speaker, I rise on behalf of ACT in support of this budget. I want to start with some simple truths about every government budget, because when a government spends, it takes from the firms, the farms and the families that make up our great country. Every dollar that the government spends cannot be spent by a family paying their groceries or their energy bill or renovating their house. It can't be invested by a business trying to create new jobs, and it can't be spent by a farmer trying to buy a new tractor. Nobody else can spend that dollar because the government has it. But it's not just that simple power to tax. The government has a diabolical power, time travel. It can actually take money now, put it into the fiscal TARDIS and send it into the future as debt, one day landing on taxpayers who might just be starting on their ABCs this afternoon, or maybe with the help of the government's new maths assistants, their 1, 2, 3s. Every government has an obligation to stop the fiscal TARDIS. For the sake of future generations, every government like this one must have a path to return to surplus and start paying debt down. And another fact is that this budget isn't the one that the ACT Party alone would bring. If you've read ACT's alternative budgets in past years, you'll know that this government is spending in this budget more than we would. But I can tell you something else. It also is spending much less than a budget without ACT. And I'm proud of the role that ACT has played, working with our partners in the National and New Zealand First parties to bring together this coalition budget. I'm proud of the role that we've played, questioning spending, finding the savings, and collectively, together, saving billions of dollars, about $4.9 billion a year for the taxpayer. And there's another great feature of this budget, was those authors. You see, it wasn't written by the postmodern unicorn chasers of the opposition benches like the ones we just heard. This budget, among other things, signals another year of stable government for New Zealand. And the Greens, well, they've helpfully shown us their alternative budget. They would increase annual government spending by $22 billion a year. And with that, they promise that they would end poverty. And I read the Greens' alternative budget, and it got me wondering, has anything like this ever happened before? Well, something very similar has happened. The last time the Greens were in government, they increased annual government spending by $52 billion a year. Now, here's the thing, they can't have it both ways. Either $52 billion of extra spending was enough to fix all our problems, or $22 billion will not be enough to fix all our problems. You see, the Greens are intellectually bankrupt, and if they were over here in government instead of there in opposition, the government would be fiscally bankrupt as well. But their bankruptcy does not end there. They're also morally bankrupt, because societies succeed when we push each other up, don't pull each other down. And the core message of the Greens, when you listen to all those thundering cliches and shop-worn phrases, in fact, I don't think Chloe Swarbrick uses an expression unless it's so well road-tested it's lost any semblance of traction. But if you listen through it all, what you hear is a simple message to her supporters. Your problems are caused by someone else's success, and if we were in power, we would pull them down. The solution to your problem is to take from someone else. That is the moral bankruptcy at the heart of the opposition's proposition. Now, there are two other parties in opposition. Te Pati Maori probably don't know what a budget is or that it was on today, so we needn't worry about them. They show up to Parliament for TikTok, not for the good of all New Zealanders, and ain't that the truth? And then there are the Labour Party, and their whole electoral strategy is kind of the opposite of the Kama Sutra. They don't have a position on anything. Mr. Speaker, it's dangerous to have a party desperate for power that won't tell you its policies. An opposition of unicorn chasers, TikTok wannabes and dodgers should never be allowed near your money. Ex-supporters, on the other hand, our ministers, our members of parliament and our allies in government are proud to stand behind a budget that is saving to invest and boosting the productive capacity of New Zealanders. We have a simple set of values that just happen to work the world over. Any government is only a group of people. So is the rest of the population. And I ask those who say that the government can solve all your problems, if a group of people ensnared in the politics and bureaucracy of government can solve your problems, imagine what human beings could do if they were free to do it for themselves without the politics and bureaucracy. And that's why the government that governs best is the government that governs less. That's why any government's goal should be unleashing the creative powers of a free society that are in all of us. The goal should be freedom under the law, so that each of us can make a difference in our own lives and the lives of those that they care about. The alternative, the politicians and their grand government schemes, they cannot make New Zealanders flourish because nobody can be forced to flourish. A country can only flourish, on the other hand, when each of us are free to be ourselves and succeed on our own terms. And I believe that those values are reflected in this budget. This budget reduces the share of the nation's economic pie that is taken by government, and while Axe would never have its fingers in the pie, our fingerprints are all over it. You see, inflation is currently 2.5%. The population grew 0.9%, or about 47,000 in the last year. And that means that our population plus inflation is almost 3.5%. If the government's budget had grown by 3.5%, it would have grown by $5 billion. And the question is, does this budget increase spending by $5 billion? No, it does not. It increases by a fraction of that. It increases by only $1.3 billion, and that is the saving. That is where we are growing our spending by less than the rest of the economy and saving New Zealanders money, so there's more for those firms and those farms and those families that make up this great country to consume. Now, that may be true, but it's not the whole story, because too often budgets are said to be all about who gets what. Actually, budgets are about values, about ensuring that there is a reward for flourishing, for taking action and making the most of your time on earth. And that's why it's so important that under this budget, if a business invests in new plant and equipment, they can write off 20% of the value and pay no tax right now. If you're a farmer buying new milking machines because you want to increase your output and export to the world, if you're a startup investing in lab equipment to test the science of your product, if you're a restaurant upgrading a commercial kitchen to serve more people better and faster, or if you're a logistics company investing in better enterprise resource management to get stuff to the right place faster, it's not up to any politician to tell people how this policy should be used. It's up to the creative people of New Zealand, and whatever they're trying to do, the 20% capital asset deduction will reduce the tax drag on investing to increase productivity and wages. The Treasury forecasts that by the time those young Kiwis learning their ABCs I mentioned enter the workforce, wages will be 1.5% higher than they would otherwise be thanks to this policy alone. This budget doesn't just hose money at what's politically popular. It sets the foundations for growth, and it benefits those New Zealanders who may not be able to vote yet, but will look back and thank today's government for this policy if they care to do so. Less tax certainly matters, If people can keep and reinvest more of what they make, it actually starts a virtuous circle turning. That investment that leads to productivity leads to higher wages and higher profits. Those profits can be reinvested, leading to more productivity, and those higher wages empower workers to become investors and owners themselves. Productivity rises some more, and all the government needs to do to allow this virtuous circle to turn is less. I'm proud to be part of a government that is doing just that where it counts. When the budget debate adjourns, we'll see the Regulatory Standards Bill debated and sent on its way to become law. And as I said at the start, the government's goal should be unleashing the creative powers of a free society. Less tax is half of the equation to human flourishing, but that's just about the government taking less of your property and tax in the first place. The government must also restrain itself from restricting how you use the property you have left. And for far too long, politicians have come into this House and trampled New Zealanders' rights to use and exchange their own property. They do it for political reasons. They ban people from using buildings to show they care about earthquakes, even if no lives will be saved and the cost will be billions. They ban oil and gas exploration to show they care about the planet, even if the practical outcome is burning more coal. They give every Tom, Dick and Hone the right to object to you building a house to show they care about the planet. But the truth is a whole generation who find that there's not enough habitat for humanity in our country. Democracy demands that politicians be held accountable for bad lawmaking, and that's what the Regulatory Standards Bill will facilitate. It will require lawmakers to publicly declare what problem their law seeks to solve. It will require them to show the effects on people's liberties and their property rights, and it will require them to weigh the costs and benefits of a law and publicly state who pays the costs and reaps the benefits. That sort of transparency and accountability will not actually stop bad lawmakers. Parliament will remain sovereign. What it will do is help voters identify and punish the bad lawmakers when they vote. And over time, we'll see a change of incentives in our politics and a change in our country. Justifiable, necessary regulations will remain, but others won't. The builder who takes longer to get consent than actually build the thing will spend more time building homes for the next generation and less time frustrated with the council. The educator who only wanted to open up young minds will have more time to do that and less time afraid of the Ministry of Education. The lawyer conveyancing property will spend more time articulating their client's interests and less time checking their identity again and again and again. The church organising an Anzac Day parade will spend more time preparing to honour those who made the ultimate sacrifice for our country and less time talking to the council about more frickin' cones. That is the world of empowerment with less red tape and regulation that this budget and the Regulatory Standards Bill herald. But the government is also investing in things that matter. And what matters more than anything is to be safe in our bodies, from thugs abroad and thugs at home. And that's why a $500 million boost in defence and foreign affairs are necessary in a changing world. ACT long campaigned, one alternative budget after another, to spend 2% of GDP on defence, and that is what our Defence Minister, Judith Collins, will be spending in her 9th term in Parliament in the early 2030s. It is a form of insurance defence. You hope you never use it, but the chances are higher ever that we might have to. Big countries talk about peace through strength. A better option for a small country like New Zealand is peace through alliances. And this budget allows New Zealanders to take seriously our ancient Anzac bind. It allows us to be part of a network of like-minded democratic societies committed to defending our freedoms in an uncertain world. We also need security from thugs at home. Some government spending, I've got to say, just sells itself. And there are few things that are better value than locking up criminals. Nearly $500 million for locking up more crooks sounds expensive, but if you think crims are expensive in jail, imagine them out on the streets, robbing, raping and murdering. Locking them up is the best money we'll ever spend. The government is investing also in the ultimate resource, human creativity. Better education, including another $140 million on school attendance, will help ensure that we transfer skills from one generation to the next and have fewer lives going off the rails. And when children get to school, the learning support and the maths help will be there. I want to paint a picture. Just imagine how our society could be today if that maths help was available when Grant Robertson was at school. The budget would be much, much easier, if only. Parents who save and sacrifice to get their children a better future at a private school pay taxes like anyone else. Their children deserve an education like anyone else, and yet they pay more GST on their school fees than they get back in government subsidy. After 15 years of neglect, we are finally increasing that subsidy and tying it to the actual number of parents who choose private schools rather than simply capping it and watching their fees slowly reduce. All of these policies are possible only because we've been prepared to live within our means. And those reckless, hungry years under the previous government, when any problem could be solved by throwing some more of other people's money at it, or so we were told, I think we had a different approach in this country that had to stop. In fact, if Labor sold T-shirts, they'd probably say, I voted Labor and all I got was $100 billion worth of debt. That's all we got. And for those who blame COVID, the splurge went on far longer than that. This government has to do what those firms and farms and families had to do in the hungry years of Labor. If we want to spend more, we need to save somewhere else. It makes no sense for government to borrow money your children will need to pay back with interest, then put it in your KiwiSaver so you can invest in shares. I'm sorry, I know people like free money, but it's not free. Your kids will pay it back and it makes no sense. It's just good basic financial management. I said Brooke van Velden saved the taxpayer billions in the budget for the government. Today it's been revealed the savings of the pay equity changes, $12.8 billion over 4 years. But I also said something else. I said she left a fairer, more affordable and more sustainable pay equity scheme. That is true. What she's done is she's ensured if you want to take a pay equity claim, you've got to prove sex-based discrimination. The whole point of it, in the beginning, I would have thought, Camilla Bellich. And yes, she also said that we need to put the emphasis on growing wages back onto the actions that economists tell us grow wages. I heard people say after the changes that they'd been, quote, working on pay equity cases for years. I got a newsflash for them. That's not work. That's litigation. It doesn't make the boat go faster. The fact that people thought taking a pay equity claim was work tells us everything we need to know about why it needed to change the way the left think and the way the union movement think. There are not only fiscal savings from pay equity changes, there's a proud declaration that this country or no other country will get wealthy by arguing with itself. We get wealthier from investment, innovation and genuine hard work, such as this government and this budget promotes. And of course, there's many other savings. The $18.4 million reduction in RNZ funding should help focus the organisation on high-quality news reporting, the way many of its competitors have been forced to do in a challenging industry. ECA has always been silly. People know energy is expensive, and that's good to save it. There's no need for a government department to do that, and over 4 years we're going to save $56 million there. Ending the mad experiment of kahuiako, or communities of learning, which were actually communities of teachers taking time off, that will save $375.5 million, and good on Erica Stanford for removing what Hekia Parata started. Crazy research grants, so-called climate resilience for Māori, whatever that really is, bilingual towns and cities funding, it's all getting cut to save taxpayers' money. People who work hard in the real world, treating others well, taking each person as they find them, those people have in this budget some relief and being taken seriously. Mr. Speaker, there are so many savings, I'm going to run out of time. But what I will say is I'm proud to be on this team with these parties bringing down this budget with the savings that ACT has produced, with the sense of hope that we get when people are able to make a difference in their own lives. This little country can keep the promise of all those who have come to its shores for a brighter future. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you. Thank you.